it doesn't make you a Karen to get what you deserve. Like, I really want to speak about this, guys, because I feel this society has become so weak to the point now where you asking for what you actually deserve, what you've paid for, what you should have got, what you contractually should have had, whatever, has become put under the guise of being a Karen, right? So somebody, for example, let's say you go to, I'll give an example of something that actually could matter. Well, and it doesn't matter that it could matter, but I'll give an example, right? So let's say you work in a coffee shop, right? I've worked as a barista before, guys, as well. I've worked in so many different jobs. It's actually hilarious. But anyway, let's say you work in a coffee shop, right? A customer comes in and the customer says, "Oh, can I have a decaf oat milk latte?" Right? If you make that person a caffeinated oat milk latte, right? First of all, that person might actually need it to be decaffeinated, maybe because they're pregnant, maybe because they've got some issues with their kidneys and they're super sensitive to caffeine, maybe because of whatever, right? Either way, right? That's just me saying that sometimes there's reasons why people make a big fuss, a kerfuffle about something. But even if it's not a situation like that, right? Why is it that we make people feel bad for asking for what they paid for? I don't get it. Why is it that we make people feel bad for that? And I feel like the fact that we keep doing this in society is what's making society weak, which is lowering our standards of quality of stuff in general, because people know they can get away with anything. You go to order food somewhere, they know you're not going to send the food back, or you're not going to say this isn't what I ordered, or this isn't what we wanted, or whatever. So people get away with just lowering the standards. You see what I'm saying? Or even if it comes down to treatment, right? For example, like I'll give you guys an example of a situation that took place with me, right? When I was in when I went to a store once, right? So I went to this store to buy I can't remember. Oh yeah, I was buying like probiotic tablets, right? So I was buying probiotic tablets, and I was curious because there was two of them next to each other. One of them was like more, had like cost like maybe like a couple of pounds more than the other one, right? And I was thinking at the time, now I want to preface this that I don't like to ask customer service people things in general, because customer service people are usually pretty incompetent if you're at a lower level job. I'm just being honest. Look, I've worked in customer service. My first job was in McDonald's. I've worked in retail as well. Like I just said, I've worked as a barista. I've worked in lots of different types of jobs, guys. So I'm not saying this from some like high horse of like not knowing what it's like. I'm saying this from the experience of like I literally have worked in those jobs, and I know that a lot of the time people aren't always also being paid enough to care, which I kind of get as well, you know. So sometimes it's a bit of a joint issue. But anyway, so I go into this store and I decided to ask the lady, because it's one of these stores, it's like one of these health stores where like the people should know. And I've worked in a role like that. Like the retail job that I worked in, I used to work in Decathlon. So like we were all supposed to be, we were all called sports advisors, and we all worked on a particular department. So we were supposed to know the products in our department so that the customers can actually ask us questions, which is actually one of my favorite parts, because I was on the fitness department. I claimed it from day one that I wanted to be like on fitness, and so it would be really fun for me to talk to the customers about like what type of workout they're trying to do, what equipment do they need, what clothes are they going to need, and like, you know, it was amazing. So anyway, so I don't ask people in customer service because I know that's not really a thing anymore. So I, anyway, that day decided, you know what? Maybe I'm just assuming the worst. Maybe I am being the one who's just like, you know, thinking, maybe I'm sitting on my high horse thinking that people are just like, you know, incompetent. So I go to this lady and I say, "Excuse me, by any chance, do you know what the difference is between these two?" Like, and that was all I said. I didn't say that I expected her to know. I just asked her, "Excuse me, I don't suppose you happen to know like the difference between these two?" Because I also know that even if you work in a place, you don't necessarily know everything that your place sells. So I was like, cool. I'll just ask to see if she does. And then she goes off on one, right? And she's like, "You don't know, how am I supposed to know what every single product in this store is? Da, 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 da." And I was like, lady, I literally asked, "Do you happen to know the difference between these two?" You could have been like, "Oh no, ma'am, sorry, I don't happen to know that." And I'd have been like, "Okay, that's fine." Because I was actually trying to Google it. I was preferring to Google it than ask somebody, because I can't deal with people who, you know, I can't deal with that, right? So anyway, I did say something I did send in an email to the customer service, and I said, "Listen, this is what happened with this lady." Because let me tell you guys something. When we're allowing these types of behaviors, right, when people just get away with stuff because we don't want to seem like a Karen. Now, a lot of people would agree that it was fine for me to have done that. But in other scenarios where people have had horrible customer service, or people have been spoken to rudely, people nowadays say stuff like, "Oh, you don't know what the cashier is going through." Do you know how many like we're all going through stuff? We don't all get to make excuses for the fact that, "Oh, I might be going through something, so I get to be horrible to everybody that I come across, you know, in that day." Like, how did we end up like that in society? And I feel like what always happens in society, I'm gonna just say it 100% as how what I'm thinking it right here and now, right? Is because the majority of us are the ones in those types of positions, right? Working in those types of jobs. And so we want to create the society that favors our victimhood. That's how I feel. I didn't even know this is where we're going with this, but here's where we're going. We want to create a society that favors our victimhood. So because I feel like a victim, I feel underpaid, I feel like, what if I was having a bad day? You don't know what it's like for me. You don't know what it's like for the person on the other side. That's why I actually used the example of the coffee thing at the beginning. You as a customer service person might think, oh, I don't care. I've been asked to do like four oat milk lattes. I'm just going to make them all caffeinated. It's not a big deal. But like I said, you don't know why that person's asking. You don't know what it has to do. What it has to do with if it's something health related. And even if it doesn't, guess what? Maybe that person's being able to just have that one coffee drink was the one thing that would have helped them that day. You know, the one thing that would have put a smile on their face. Because that's how I used to look at it working in customer service, and I loved it. Like, the only reason I wouldn't even stay working in those kinds of jobs now is only because the type of stuff I want to do, like saying crazy things I say on YouTube, a lot of people wouldn't do, whereas a lot of people would do those things. So I'm like, hey, those things are going to be covered because there's people who are happy to do that. There's not people who are happy to do a lot of the stuff that I would do, you know. And so, you know, I find it just so annoying that it's like everything now is has become becoming a Karen. And it came to my thought. This came to my thought because basically I was watching this video, and this guy was saying, oh, I don't want to look like I'm being a Karen, but he'd basically ordered food from a restaurant, like a fast food chain, and the chicken was raw. And when I say raw, I don't mean like, oh, questionably, like it was like pinkly raw, like I don't know anybody who could have looked at that was trained to work anywhere that could have looked at that chicken and thought that that chicken was cooked, right? And so this is the cost of now what the society we've developed now, right? Is that now people are getting fed, we're just lowering the standards because people feel like they can get away with anything, right? They don't have to make things look good, they don't have to serve you or give you what you've asked for, right? And so because you'll be then seen as a Karen anyway, right? This is why I think a lot of times, right, especially when it comes to like something where you have to order something maybe online, right? We've created this society where, because we just take everything as how it is, the quality expectation of quality isn't there, like I said. And so people just are now purposefully getting away with doing things, and it's just shooting all of us in the foot. Because let's think about this. What if let me flip it back to the people who'd say, oh, but you don't know what it's like for the person in customer service. Excuse me. What about, let's use the example of this uncooked food, right? What if you are a mum or a family, right, and you've been struggling in these times, you know, these times of everything that's happening, and this is the one time you've decided to save out of the month so that you can buy your children, let's say, a takeaway or something, or fast food, right, whatever, and this is what you get, but then you don't want to go back because you don't want to be seen as a Karen, right? And I always see this with people when people feel like it's awkward for them to ask for what they want, or to say, oh, I ordered some fries as well and I didn't get them. And then people, and I watch YouTubers a lot of the time do this, and it really irritates me because they'll be doing these videos where they're like going through the drive-through of blah blah blah, or they'll just be vlogging their day, right? Let's say they're just vlogging their day. They're vlogging their day. They'll go through the drive-through, and then they'll notice that something is missing that they've ordered. Now, instead of just, and this is why I say society is weak, because instead of you just saying to the people in the store, because they might have just forgotten, it happens, we're human beings, why can't we be okay with that, right? They'll be like, oh, they forgot the fries, but I'm not going to ask for them, and then they'll complain about it for the next 10-15 minutes of the video, like, but it would have been nicer if I could have had the fries, and it would have been nice. It's like, you could have had the fries, you could have had the bollocks to ask for the fries, you know what I'm saying? And that's what kind of irritates me. And then we live this lesser life of just like always being in this constant state of anxiety. This is why we're in this constant state of anxiety. It should not be a big deal, guys. It shouldn't be a big deal if you have paid for something, if you have if you've ordered something or paid for something or whatever, right, or made an agreement for something that you're supposed to get in return, you should be okay to ask for it. You shouldn't be seen as a Karen. I wish there were more. Do you know where I wish that we had more Karens? I wish we had more Karens in schools. I wish there were more parents actually going to the schools and talking to the teacher, to asking why their kids are being taught some of these crazy things that they're being taught in schools, right? Where's the Karen energy for that? No, instead, oh, I don't want to be seen as a Karen, so instead I'm gonna just let my child be poisoned by the place that they spend the most of their daylight hours in, and just say, oh, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be a Karen, because I don't want society to look at me like a Karen, because I care so much about society, which is why society is living in anxiety. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was gonna rhyme just then. But anyway, society is living in anxiety right now, and we wonder why we're all anxious, because we all care so much about whatever particular group is being protected, just because we don't know how hard it is for this, and you don't know how hard it is for that. Now, not all the time. Sometimes people are being Karens. Sometimes people are overdoing it. Like, sometimes you have obviously the people where, like, you'll have a next door neighbor, and you've decided that you wanted to, plant some lovely plants in your garden, 100% on your property, and the person next door decides that they find it distracting seeing them, the plants on your property next door, that's not even in their way, that's not got anything to do with them. Yes, of course, these people are the true Karens. You know what I'm saying? That is being a Karen. You asking for something that you deserve, something that you paid for, something that, whether you're justified or not, whether it's what you wanted or not, shouldn't be an issue. Do you see what I'm saying? And if the issue is, let's say in this scenario of let's say you're working in a fast food place, right? Let's say you're working in a fast food place and you're saying, you know what, it's hard because we have so many orders and we're understaffed. That, as soon as we make that the fault of the customer, do you understand that just makes it easier for the system to get away with it more? Because they know that's what you're going to do. They know you're going to just blame the customer and be like, oh, these customers are being so difficult, they don't know how hard it is. It doesn't mean people can't be sympathetic. That's why I think when people can be honest and say, you know what, I'm so sorry, you were supposed to get this, but we're just really busy right now. Can we, if you could wait like a couple of minutes, we'll get you we'll get you some fries, or if you can do whatever, we'll do this, that type of thing. Obviously at that point, now if you decide to go ahead and be a horrible person and then be like, oh, but blah blah blah, then that's on you. We should all be understanding towards each other. All I'm saying is that we don't get to just sit there and say that because you are having a hard time, like, especially with this whole customer service thing. Like I said, I've worked in customer service. I've worked, well, I've not just worked in customer service. I worked in many different jobs, right? People facing, front facing, like, my energy is going to affect the interaction. I've gone to work and I've like been crying up to the second that I walked out of the changing rooms to start my job. Like, I've gone to work when I've been going through the worst periods of my life, right? And I can barely even focus. That's not the fault of the people who are there. So it's not like I don't know the feeling of that, guys. I know the feeling of going into work, having to do what you have to do, dealing with people, sometimes people who are difficult. This is the world. Sometimes people who are difficult as well, they're not actually difficult, they're just difficult to you. Sometimes that's just who they are. Sometimes that's just their personality style. Like, we're all here understanding that people have the likes of the ADHDs and whatnot. Sometimes you might have somebody who wants something done in a very specific way, and they're not being a Karen about it. That's how they function, especially when you start to talk about things like autism and stuff like that. So isn't it interesting how we can be understanding when it's you? And that's what I mean with all these things in society. I feel like we always have not we all, a lot of us tend to have the understanding when it's something that affects us, when it's something that we've been in the position of, right? As soon as it's something we can't relate to, we don't want to, you don't get to be a victim in this scenario. Like, you don't get to for people to understand where you're coming from, because we are the victims and I'm the one who's going through this. And that's what I really dislike about this. Not everything that somebody's saying is asking for is them being a Karen. Sometimes you didn't do your job. Sometimes, yes, you messed up. Sometimes, yeah, you were having a bad day. Guess what? Welcome to adulthood. Welcome to the fact that we all have hard days. We all have to do things that we don't want to do in times that we would be so ideal to be doing something else. That's called being an adult. That's called let's grow up. That's called being a strong person, because you can't just be I feel like in society we're like creating a society where we just happily bleed all over each other all the time. Like, just because I'm going through something and I'm going through whatever, I have to bring my cloud of negativity around the place. And I found, by the way, guys, that when you actually talk to people on a level, you'll be surprised how nice of interactions you can have with people when you don't treat people who you think are being Karens as Karens, right? Because they might be really appreciative. And I've had situations like that even with like customers in various jobs, where they'll, be really appreciative, that instead of making them feel bad, I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, you should have got what you should have got, or you didn't get the service that you deserve. Like, I'm sorry to hear that, like, whatever. And then they might open up and they might be like, you know what, yeah, and I was actually having a really bad day, and it's actually nice that somebody today was actually able to acknowledge how I was feeling, because I've just been going through so much, a lot at work and a lot at home. And then all of a sudden you can share your stories together and be like, oh my gosh, I know that feeling, you know, sometimes, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then you can kind of share, and then it ends up being like a super wholesome like interaction. And then that might even end up being like a regular customer that you get to chat to, or that might even be end up showing you as well that that might bring your day up. Because that used to happen to me as well, like when I would work in places that sometimes I'd be in a really, really horrible state, but then I would just maintain my positivity with the customers, because like I said, it's not their fault that I'm having a bad day. It's not their fault that I'm going through something. And if I'm going through something and it's causing for me to not do my job as well as possible, it's also still not their fault. So I should just apologize and make the mature decision, right? And so a lot of those times, me just being honest and having a genuinely positive interaction with them puts me in a better mood, and then I end up leaving work feeling better than I even thought, you know. And that wasn't really the main point of the video, but what I'm just trying to say is that, like, us calling people Karens, I feel like we're getting too comfortable with this Karen thing, like, oh, I feel like a Karen because this, I feel like a Karen because that. No, if you didn't get what you were supposed to get, you're not being a Karen. If you didn't get what you're supposed to get 4 times, you're not being a Karen. And it shouldn't be that we live in a society where you have to have a reason. Like I mentioned with the caffeination thing, right? People be like, oh, well, she can't have caffeine because she's pregnant, so yeah, you should actually have been focused. It's like, no, you should have done it anyway, because that's what you should have done for your job. And when are we going to get back to people just doing their jobs? And that's why I don't ask people for customer services questions. I'll rather walk around the whole store looking for something on my own than ask somebody. I'm that kind of person. And if I'm with somebody in a store and they're going to ask a customer service person, I will actually leave. Like, not the store, but I will walk away, like, down the aisle, because I'm not going to stand there for somebody to just, you know, be coming with all these weird attitudes and whatnot and whatever. I'd rather look for it myself, because I know that we're in a society anyway that's not very competent, where people say that where we've lowered the bar so strongly, right, that it doesn't help us. It doesn't help you. I promise you, even if you feel justified as to say like, oh, but it's hard, you don't know what it's like, which I've just told you I know exactly what it's like, right? But let's say I didn't, right? Let's say that I didn't. Even still, you are not going to improve as a person. The best thing for you as a worker, especially if you're in a job that you don't like, is to actually be good at what you do. Like, actually be good at what you do, because you never know what the benefits could be of that in the long run as well. Do you see what I'm saying? You never know who's watching. You never know who's lurking about. And I've had these types of things happen to me before in jobs, because I remember in McDonald's, and this is a really funny story to me, because in my first 3 months, I only worked there for like 4 months, and then I moved to a different job, right? But I remember literally on like my 3rd month, I got called in to work for something, and I was like, what the hell is happening? Anyway, I only went and bagged myself Employee of the Month 3 months in. I was like, well, please, this is my first job at 16 years old, right? And then, not only that, like, before I left, so within this same 4 months, one of these dudes from HQ, like, they always send somebody from HQ. Now, obviously, I didn't know anything better than anything when this was happening. I was just doing my thing, right? Joking and laughing with the customers, as always. And by the way, I used to cry before going to work at McDonald's. Can I tell you that? Because they used to just completely destroy my timetable. Obviously, they were taking advantage because I was younger. They were trying to conflict with me going to church. I hated it for a lot of reasons. So I actually used to cry before and after going to work at McDonald's. But I still never brought that energy to the customers. Anyway, then I got a member from the HQ had come to, like, do whatever they do to check that. I can't remember the word for it, where you kind of check the quality, like a quality control check or something like that. Anyway, and then I ended up getting picked as the favorite there as well. He was like, yeah, I really liked your energy with the customers. I thought you were really fantastic, and I picked you. Apparently, they always pick a person to, like, highlight that it's doing super well, that they've observed in the day. So, you know, and then these types of interactions, and this is where you got to switch into the winning mindset as well, guys. Let's turn it back to the winning team. That these are the types of things where when you're in society making excuses all the time and not prepared to, you know, first of all, ask for what you need, because you need to be able to ask for what you need. Number one, that helps the overall quality of society itself, right? But number two is where you're making excuses for bad attitude, right? Because you're being underpaid, and I was being underpaid, guys. I was being paid like ridiculous. I think I was being paid £3.41 per hour at that point. What a joke, right? Yeah, it's like £3.51 or something like that I was getting paid per hour, right? So it was less than £5, let's put it like that, right? And but you never know how these things benefit you, because you never know who's watching, and you never know what opportunity could arise just from you doing what you're doing there. And I feel like that's a very biblical principle as well, which is why, you know, I believe that God is always saying that, you know, to always do all work as unto the Lord, as in, like, always be showing your best foot forward, because you never know who's paying attention. You never know who's watching. You never know who's appreciating your energy and your ability to, first of all, be strong enough and mature enough, right, and competent enough could be the ticket for an opportunity that you don't even know is happening in front of you because you don't know. And especially when you're working in these types of like fast food retail places where everybody of all walks of life is going to be coming through there, so you never know as well. So you could just be shooting yourself in the foot. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to say we just need to stop overusing this Karen phrase. I'm mainly talking like in the areas of like retail and fast food and that type of thing. Right, it goes across the board, right? If you've got your car fixed, you took your car to the mechanics and it came back and there's an issue and it's still doing whatever, or the something is loose, you should go and fix that, because guess what? You could first of all, you should get what you paid for, right? Just for starters, that's the most important. That should be the full stop at that point. But on top of that, right, that could be dangerous for you. So you're saying that it's more important for you to not feel like a Karen and not be seen as a Karen by society than to make sure that you can drive around safely. I don't know. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the subscribe if you're feeling the vibe and you want to join the tribe. And like the video if you did like it, because if life's a game, then let's play to win. God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.